I knew before I walked in that the dinner wasn't really about celebrating. It was about positioning. The restaurant was private, upscale enough to signal taste, but not so expensive that it felt vulgar. My brother sat at the center of the long table. His fiancée, perfect posture, perfectly measured smile, sat beside him like she'd already stepped into the role. I took a seat near the end. No one objected. No one insisted I move closer either. When the menus were cleared and champagne was poured, she leaned toward me, still smiling. "We're keeping the guest list small," she said lightly. "No plus ones. Especially for people like you." There was a softness to her voice that made it sound almost friendly. "People like me?" I asked. "Oh, you know," she said, waving her hand vaguely, "independent. Busy. You probably wouldn't bring anyone serious anyway." A few people chuckled. Before I could respond, my mother lifted her glass. "Let's just be grateful he even invited you at all," she said with a bright laugh. "Family's complicated." More laughter. My uncle added, Maybe you can park cars at the wedding. You're good with logistics, right?" That one got a bigger reaction. I smiled. Not tightly. Not angrily. Just enough to signal I'd heard them. 5 months earlier, my brother had called me late at night. They'd fallen in love with a venue, historic estate, limited availability, non-refundable deposit. It was more than they could comfortably afford. "I just need someone solid on the contract," he'd said. "Temporary. You're good with this stuff." I'd built a company advising businesses on financial structure and risk mitigation. I understood contracts. I also understood what it meant when someone asked you to guarantee something. But he was my brother. So I met with the venue coordinator. I reviewed the terms. I signed as primary financial guarantor for the deposit and cancellation clause. I told myself it wasn't about leverage, it was about support. Back at the table, the laughter died down slowly. I reached beside my chair and pulled out the folder I'd brought, not dramatically. Just calmly placing it on the white tablecloth. My brother's smile faded slightly. "What's that?" he asked. "Paperwork," I said. I opened the folder and slid a copy of the venue contract toward him. "Cool," I added evenly. "Then I'll let the venue know you don't need my sponsorship anymore. Hope you can afford the cancellation fee." Silence is different when it lands mid-toast. My uncle cleared his throat. My mother blinked at the document like it might rearrange itself into something harmless. His fiancée's smile thinned. "What cancellation fee?" she asked. I tapped the highlighted paragraph, non-refundable deposit. "And a 60-day clause. If the primary guarantor withdraws, full balance becomes due within 10 business days." My brother looked at me, genuinely confused. "You said you were just helping secure it."
I did.
"And now?" "I'm reconsidering," I said, "since I'm apparently not family enough for a seat at the table." The restaurant's ambient music filled the gap no one else knew how to bridge. My mother leaned in first. "Don't be petty," she said quietly. "This is their future." "I agree," I replied, "which is why it should probably be secured by someone who actually belongs." The fiancé finally dropped the softness. "You're threatening us over a joke." "No," I said. "I'm clarifying expectations." My brother ran both hands through his hair. "Why didn't you say something earlier if you felt excluded?" I almost laughed. Because that's how it always worked. I was expected to absorb things quietly and speak only when convenient. "I'm saying something now," I replied. He looked down at the contract again. The numbers were clear. The signature line was clear. My name was printed in black ink under primary financial party. Authority doesn't always wear a uniform. Sometimes it's a signature. "Are you actually going to pull out?" he asked. "I haven't decided," I said. "I just need to understand what role I'm playing." The room had shifted. The earlier confidence was gone. Now there were calculations happening. Mental math, reputational risk, pride versus practicality. My uncle spoke up again, but softer this time. "Nobody meant anything by it." "I know," I said. "That's the point. If they'd meant to hurt me, it would have been simpler. Intentional cruelty is easier to confront than casual dismissal. My brother leaned back in his chair. "So what do you want?" he asked. Not angrily. Seriously. I considered the question. "I want to be included without being tolerated," I said. "If I'm good enough to secure your wedding, I'm good enough to attend it properly." The fiancé looked at him. He looked at her. A private conversation happening in eye contact. Finally, he nodded slowly. "You'll have a +1, he said. "Front table." "That's not what I'm asking for," I replied. He frowned. "I'm asking for respect that isn't conditional on paperwork." The weight of that settled. No one laughed this time. After a long pause, he reached for the contract and slid it back toward me. "You're my brother," he said. "You're not parking cars." It wasn't poetic. It wasn't dramatic. But it was the first time that night he'd spoken without performance. I closed the folder. "I'll keep the sponsorship," I said, "but if this turns into another situation where I'm convenient but invisible, I won't hesitate next time." The engagement dinner continued. Quieter, more careful. No one made another joke at my expense. Driving home later, I didn't feel victorious. I felt clearer. Money hadn't created power, it had exposed imbalance. And once exposed, it couldn't be unseen.